All right. MidLife Live panel number 2. I am really excited for this one. I got 3 more awesome guests, 2 making their debut on the channel. But first, Mr. Junk Wax Hero coming in with 11.3 thousand subscribers in just 721 videos. We all know Mike. He's got the attic find videos. He's got the videos of the weekly sports card news for us each week. He's got a fantastic channel, and I am excited to hear his insights. So he is the first of 3 that will be joining us in MidLife Live number 2. Now, he's been on for short little periods, but never a long one like this. And I'm honored to have him joining me this week on our second episode of MidLife Live. So, who would go well with Mike? How about Dan of Dan's Vintage Baseball PC? He's over 1,000 subscribers in under 100 videos. And we all know Dan. He's the super collector conversationalist. He's got an awesome collection of his own. The second guy from the Northeast joining us. I am alone on the West Coast. So we've got Junk Wax Hero Mike. We've got Dan of Dan's Vintage Baseball PC. So who would round out this trio of collectors for our second MidLife Live? Well, another person like Dan making his first appearance on the channel, but has a great channel of his own, is Jake over at Wax Pack Wisdom. 720 subscribers in 244 videos. He's always opening packs on his channel. He's always talking baseball history on his channel. He's picked up some massive cards in the last 6 months. All 3 of these guys are 3 channels I look forward to their videos of. So here is the panel for MidLife Live number 2. I couldn't be more excited to have these 3 guys with me. I think it's going to be a blast. If you're not subscribed to these 3 channels, you really should. Wax Pack Wisdom, Junk Wax Hero, and Dan's Vintage Baseball PC for MidLife Live number 2.
What's going on, everybody? I want to start by going around the horn. Let's just go clockwise. Jake, how's it going?
I'm doing great, Greg. Thanks for having me. It's a wonderful evening to talk baseball cards, and I don't know what's happening with Dan right now, so we're gonna find this out.
I think we'll find out momentarily. How you doing, Mike?
If you don't know what Dan's doing, then you haven't really paid attention to the comments on any of my videos. Yeah, I'm doing great.
I like the content, not the commenters.
Yeah, I appreciated that 25-minute intro, so I could take a little nap.
Now let me say behind you, Mike, we really like your Tom Brady card tonight.
Oh man!
Yes.
Yeah.
Mrs. Junk Wax Hero got you again.
Yeah, so we're enjoying that. I think that's the only one.
She will be so happy.
Yeah. And finishing out the circle, how's it going, Dan? What's going on over there? You got sunglasses on.
So, I'm an advanced age. We
know.
My eyesight is going. I have to protect my eyesight. And this guy next to me, his head is shining. I got the ultraviolet rays coming off that head. It's going to kill me. So I'm going to have to go with the sunglasses tonight.
All right. Well, what we're going to be talking about tonight, multiple things, but one of the things we're going to start off by talking about is, on the last live stream, I went into who's hobby relevant long term and who is going to be forgotten. And let me first start by saying I don't think that you shouldn't collect a player just because they aren't a superstar. They aren't one of those top tier guys. And so one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight is sort of who do we collect that's not the Cobb or Ruth or Gehrig or Mantle, the guys like that. But we're also going to talk about kind of how that plays a role into what we collect, values, how values play a role into what we collect. And then we're going to move a little bit into some grading stuff. I don't know if you guys heard the news today, but it's been the last couple of days. PSA changed what makes up a 10, a gem 10, is no longer 60-40 on their website. It suddenly became 45-55 without saying anything. So we'll probably talk a little bit about that as we go. Those of you in the chat, there's 95 of us out there in the chat already, which is phenomenal. So thank you to all of you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for a second. And we're going to walk through some of the questions that I asked to all of you guys and kind of pick your brain on why you answered them the way that you did. So let's go ahead and go again. There's our panel. Look at those guys. Good looking guys. If you haven't subscribed yet to Wax Pack Wisdom, do that for sure. Junk Wax Hero if you want to. And then Dan's Vintage PC is a for sure as well. But they're three great channels, three channels I watch all the time. I look forward to all of their videos.
So much that you can name my Sunday morning episode, right? The
series clearing the bases.
Okay, very, very well done.
It's not
you were prepared for that. You were prepared.
I did say running the bases, I think, at one point.
You're stealing the bases. Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way, Orlando, on your Hall of Fame induction. We're all very happy
Orlando.
for you. Well deserved.
And anybody else who's out there, yes.
Yeah, if I see others, other new inductees, I'll point them out.
Orlando set the record. He's like the Mariano Rivera of the YouTube Sports Hall of Fame. He set the record.
He should have been. He should have been every ballot. He was. It was like a Derek Jeter
comment
situation.
is going right over my face. Is there way?
Yeah, we put you on bottom on it. That was yeah. Mike asked me to do that.
Wait, who's Mike? I see Dustin above me. I'm not sure.
Here we go. We got Steve is throwing it out there.
You could have put me on with anybody. You put me on with this guy. I would prefer to be on with Tony. You got me on with Dustin here.
I think
hey, we're here to talk about cards of people who are irrelevant in the hobby. But does anybody have one of Dan?
No. Moving right along, we're at 104 people in the chat. That is awesome. Appreciate that. Now, first off, how important is long-term relevance? Now, I've got a case on the wall right here that has a bunch of players of a bunch of Hall of Famers that a lot of people wouldn't know. So I am the first person to admit that I collect cards of even Hall of Famers that a lot of people wouldn't consider relevant at this point. And so one of the things I asked all of you is I asked some questions, and these are your responses. So the first question was, how important is long-term relevance to you in your collection? And you all responded, and the options, if you're listening, not watching, are 0 importance, not very important, somewhat important, and extremely important. Long-term relevance of the players that you collect. So let's take a look and see how we responded to that one. So Dan said not very important. Mike said somewhat important, and Jake said somewhat important. Why is it not very important, Dan?
I mean, I watched your live stream last time, and I was led to believe that Joe DiMaggio was not hobby relevant. And so I thought to myself, if Joe DiMaggio is not hobby relevant, how is hobby relevance important at all?
How is Joe DiMaggio not hobby relevant?
Well, so what happened was to the people that were watching, Mike. What we said was that
I was watching.
I was
wondered
watching.
then
I was
too.
there.
I know, I'm just teasing.
Mike was
No,
asleep.
I think that what people were saying was, if you fast forward 50 years, who would still be considered a top tier player in the hobby? And not everyone on the panel, the other three people, said that DiMaggio would be in a top tier hobby relevance. That's where that came from. So Dan, you were saying not very important. You said if Joe DiMaggio's not hobby relevant, then it's not that important to me. So
It's not that important because you'll see from cards I have over here, not many of these guys are household names. And so hobby relevance, I'm collecting for me. You know, what happens to my collection when I move on is up to my family. But in reality, I'm collecting for me and stuff that I'm interested in. And I may not be interested in somebody like, you know, that's hobby relevant. I don't know if I own any Ken Griffey cards, but
right.
I own this guy, Sam Jethro, and he's about as hobby relevant to me as you could possibly get.
And that's a beautiful card. The 52
African American
tops.
player in Boston history. Played for the Boston Braves, was part of the tryout at Fenway Park in 1945. Played for Montreal in 1947. Just a tremendously important player, historically relevant player. But hobby relevance is less important to me than historical relevance.
Yeah, it took 10 years, almost 10 more years before the Red Sox finally got their first black player, which is interesting. Quote, anybody in the chat know who that is? Let us know.
I can say, but I'll let.
Go ahead, Jay. No, go ahead.
It was Pumpsy Green.
It was.
So interesting. This week for 59 Tops Friday, I'm talking about Charlie Neal, and Charlie Neal was while he was in the minors, the Dodgers, the Red Sox reportedly wanted to try to buy his contract for $100,000 from the Dodgers in 1954. To be their shortstop, and the Dodgers turned him down because they wanted him to kind of be part of their long-term plan. So, and this was the case that the Red Sox made at the time in the late 50s. The way that they put a face on it was like, well, we tried, and it's like, okay, but you were still the last team to integrate. So, not a banner thing for mine and Mike's favorite team.
Right. Now, Mike, why is it not extremely important? Why is it just somewhat important for you?
Because I collect what I like, and sometimes I like players like Mike Greenwell is not hobby relevant, but I have a bunch of his cards. Ramon Martinez, I loved as a kid, not hobby relevant, but I have a bunch of his cards. I have the Lewis Taint. Gotta have it.
Yeah.
But it is somewhat important. I want to have, like, I have a series on iconic cards. And I want to have those, and those are very relevant in the hobby.
Yeah, I mean, now how do you look at something like the value of your collection, though? If you look at the total value of your collection, sure, you may have a fair amount of cards of guys like Ramon Martinez or Mike Greenwell or Ellis Burks or Tom Brunansky or whoever Red Sox guys collect, but how many? That might be 10%. Okay, there you go. It might be 10% of the cards in your collection, but it's probably like what, 1% of the value in your collection.
Less than 1%. Yeah.
So you like having their cards, but you're not interested in putting a lot of money and storing value in them.
Well, yeah, absolutely. There's no way I'm not going to spend $1,000 for a Mo Vaughn rookie auto when I can get it for $5.
Mo Vaughn, that guy hit a home run off a broken bat.
Yeah,
that was my guy.
He was a stud. He was the poor man's David Ortiz. How about you, Jake? Like, why is it not extremely important, or why is it not very important? Why did you place it where you did?
I would say that I land pretty close to where Mike is, which is just that I collect what I want to collect, and it turns out that by happenstance, there are guys that I want to collect that are going to be in this long-term hobby relevance. Like I traded 24 cards to get a Ty Cobb card a couple of weeks ago, And I think that there was an agreement that Ty Cobb was one of the guys that is going to be long-term hobby relevant, one of the only pre-war guys that that was kind of an agreement. And there's other guys that I want too. I want a Babe Ruth card at some point. I want, I've been able to, get, and I have cards from other guys that are sort of post-war guys, and a lot of them I don't have rookies yet. But to me, it comes down to I collect what I want. I don't think about like the reason for wanting those cards of Ruth and and the bigger names. I'd love to get a Playing Days Wagner card at some point. What it comes down to for me is I want cards of those guys, but I don't want it's what matters to me is not hobby relevance. What matters to me is I'm trying to build out the best collection that I can of the guys that I want, and not all of them are going to be stars. So Doug's in Joe Wood Collector is in the chat. The number one card that I want right now is not a Hall of Famer card. The number one card that I want right now is a 1915 Cracker Jack Smokey Joe.
Yeah. Well, I just saw a beautiful one for sale the other day.
There's one on eBay right now that's going for about $18K. So that's that's a bit out of my range.
No. There's one that sold in about 30 minutes the other night.
Yeah,
look it up.
Go
ahead, Mike.
Can we scroll up and cover up Dan's face with a Jeff Cole comment? I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Jeff. Jeff asked who here actually tracks the value of their collection, and I think there it is. I don't. It's not that I don't care about it. It's that today in 2025, it does not matter to me. I think about it, and I'm not saying that I don't care long term. I just, once I've bought the card, I don't think about the value of it, and I won't until someday when I need to sell. And I hope that my cards have gone up in value, but I don't have a tracker. I just signed up for one, but it's a lot of work, and I'm not sure it's worth my time.
Yeah, I've never done that either. I have a couple of sites where I can, but I've not uploaded it all. I don't really care, and it just doesn't matter to me that much.
Well, I do. So I have done it. But it's something that, like, I think in order to be actually really relevant, you'd have to do it. Like, you have to update it constantly. But the reason why I did it is for insurance reasons. That's the only reason why I did it.
That's a good reason.
So.
Yeah. All right, let's look at the next question I had, which is kind of continuing down the same road. How important is long-term value? So long-term value of the cards that you're buying, I think everybody wants to be putting money into things that aren't going to plummet, because then they would just wait to buy it until it plummeted. So we don't want our things to go down. We ideally want them to go up, but if they don't go up, I think that matters more to some than it does to others. And long-term value is, again, different than short-term value, because, there are certain things that aren't going. The thing about vintage to me is it not often does something spike. And if it does, it's a temporary spike and corrects. But it's a long-term, it's like a house. A house should be a slow build, although at times those spike. So let's look at how we responded to this one, which is different than the last one. So in this one, Mike said somewhat, what is Mookie saying over there?
Mookie said he hopes the guys' heads line up for a Connect 3 this time.
My fault, sorry.
Mike says somewhat important long-term value. Dan says somewhat important, and then Jake says not very important. So why is it not very important, Jake? It sounds like what you just said was that it would be kind of important.
Yeah, I think this is one that I kind of waffled a little bit. Like, I probably could have gone either way to not very and somewhat, but like I just think that I don't have any. So to be totally honest, the thing is, to me, is that I don't have any control over the long-term value of something. Like, it's gonna have, like, I don't know. Like, this gets into the big existential question of, like, who's going to collect vintage in 15, 20, 30, 50 years? At what we consider vintage to be the stuff from before 1980. So, or whatever, definition we want. I think we all kind of agree it's between 1980 and 1985, or like before the junk wax era kicks in. I don't have any control over that. So I'm just going to collect what I want. and who I want, and whatever happens to the value is what's going to happen. But I have learned in life that there are only so many things that you can control and things that you can't control. And the market value of a, the market value of a 61 Fleer Bob Cousy, like I don't have any control over what happens to that. I would say that when Bob Cousy kicks the bucket, this card will probably go up in value, which hopefully is not going to happen for a long time. Although he said because the Celtics won the title, he's basically like the Lord can take me now.
Yeah, he did.
He literally did say that.
I'm ready to die now.
Yeah.
Why will that go up in value when he dies? And let me just interrupt myself and just say congratulations to another recent
and Sammy's
Hall
here
of
too.
Famer. Uh-oh, I haven't seen Sammy.
So yeah,
next time. Okay. So why should that card go up in value when he dies?
Well, I'm not saying it should go up.
Why
in value,
will it?
But, well, I just think sometimes there's a run on players' cards after they die. Like, there's a run up in value. I feel like it's not as prolonged or pronounced. I will say that Cousy's an interesting one because like a lot of these basketball players from this era, they have so few cards. But I'm not saying I want it to happen. I'm not saying that I think it should happen, but I just think that usually there's a spike right after something like that happens. I think it happened with Willie Mays. I think it happened with Ricky Henderson. I don't know. Like I haven't done the research on this, but that's kind of just my assumption.
Yeah. No, I get that. Now, Dan, you said a second ago, whatever happens with my collection when I move on, whatever, it's just somewhat important. What are your thoughts on value playing a role? And before you answer that, let me just say 150 people in the chat. You guys are awesome. Thanks for coming out. Dan, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I feel like the concept that I buy only vintage or collect only vintage is part of the reason why I put this somewhat important, because I think vintage holds its value and I want it to hold its value. And, the question is 20 or 30 years from now, who will be collecting vintage? I thought to myself, you're just covered on my face again.
I'm going to do that a lot tonight. I can move me
Keep
down.
doing
Can
it.
I? Here.
Can you mute him too?
I just moved me down. It'll cover me now.
So I'm running the show now.
You're in charge.
So what I thought to myself is, who's going to be collecting vintage in 20 years? I mean, I thought, it's going to be worrisome when all the people who saw Ty Cobb play live are dead. I don't know if the vintage is going to die off at that point. My joke is that there's plenty of people who collect guys that they could not possibly mathematically have seen play. In fact, I would say almost all of my collection, except for the Munson and Mercer and those guys, are all guys I never saw play. So in that sense, I feel like vintage has to retain some value in order for me to continue to collect it. And I think that it will. So it is somewhat important.
Go ahead, Mike.
Would it be terrible for me to hope that vintage plummets in value so I can buy all the cards I want?
That's a great point.
That would be very terrible.
No, I don't, because I think that is more of a collector mentality. A person who's put big money into cards, a person who's put in big money into cards and has maybe taken for granted their retirement account, and they look at it as, well, I'm storing this money here instead of there. That's more of an investor mentality. But from a collector mentality, I mean, Mangini, I think, is in the chat. He is. He's said a bunch of times, it doesn't matter. Like when he dies, someone will have value or not, or it's their problem. Like,
well,
so
it also affects what you can buy. I mean, value is important to a certain extent because it affects what I'm able to afford to buy. So, I mean, in that sense, I'm concerned with it.
All right, let's go to the next question. Now, the next question is 3 players you collect the most. And we're starting with Mike. Mike says Pedro Martinez, Ricky Henderson, Carl Yastrzemski. Do you think those guys are long-term hobby relevant, or do you collect them because you like them? The one that stands out to me there is Ricky Henderson. I'm not surprised by the Pedro or the Carl Yastrzemski, but the Ricky. Why Ricky?
I loved Ricky as a kid. I just was obsessed with Ricky Henderson. Anytime I could get mostly when he was with Oakland, just loved Ricky Henderson. How could you not? And Griffey is close too. Like I have at least 1,000 of cards of each of these three guys, and Griffey's right up there too. But no Reds cards. Keep the Reds cards away from me.
All right, and
Bad
Pedro Yastrzemski doesn't really need to say much about why you like those guys. Obviously, a Red Sox fan. Pedro probably the star as you were kind of going through growing up, and the stud of the championship teams, and then Yastrzemski was sort of the legendary guy winding down his career as you were growing up. So he's probably had some legend and lore. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Pedro Martinez is my all-time favorite baseball player. Just I never missed the Red Sox game when he was with them at all, but his starts were must watch. I either was at the games, or I was watching them, or I was listening to them on the radio while I was working. John Wasden, way back
Wasden. There we go.
Man, we got too many Red Sox people in this room.
Many.
I would say we
way
don't
back
have
Wasden and Waveman Wendell.
I would say we don't have enough.
I will say this: we have 2 Yankee fans and we have 2 Red Sox fans in here. We have 159 people in the chat. Never missed a Pedro or Clemens start. Me neither. I remember. Do you remember? That's not funny. Do you remember back on like CNN back in the day? Had at the bottom the scrolling scores, and like every 3 seconds I would sit there during Clemens starts, and I would just sit there and watch that for when it loaded to see the score changes. Like that was like where I was at in life, for whatever that is worth. All right, next, Dan, the 3 that Dan collects. Now, something really jumped off the charts at me on this. So Dan's 3 he mentioned were Warren Spahn, Sandy Koufax, Bob Feller, 3 pitchers, which is interesting. No Yankees, which is interesting. So explain, what is the reason behind your 3?
Spahn is a family thing. I grew up, Spahn was legendary, and he's a lefty pitcher. I was a lefty pitcher. Koufax, Brooklyn guy, New Yorker, lefty pitcher, dominant. And Feller, I mean, I think Feller's got so much to talk about when it comes to Feller, but what it really boils down to is you're talking about a guy who went through multiple generations of baseball, war hero, just a guy who was part of the game for like 60 years. And I feel like his cards, he's got great cards too. So
yeah,
I mean, a lot of this is the cards are good, except for Spahn's later cards. But I collect. These are the ones I wrote down mostly because they're the ones that I go deepest on. Like I have a lot of what John Mangini would call oddballs, and stuff that's away from the normal regular flagship stuff. And so that's why I put them. That's why I put those 3 down. I collect, as you know, like 25 different players, so it was hard to break it down to 3.
Now, something that pops up here in the chat, but also pops up when I'm thinking about this, is pitchers. Historically, the value has been a lot less. Do you think that'll ever change, Dan, or do you think there will always be the big gap between pitchers and batters?
I don't know. I mean, does it? I don't even notice it, to be honest with you. I'm looking at I'm looking for the lake to lake Warren Spahn, and I can't get it for I can't find it, and I can't get it for a value. So I mean, it's too expensive. I can't get the Warren Spahn tip top because the same thing. It's too expensive. So in that sense, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. And same thing with these other, Koufax, the Bell brand stuff, and the Morel meats, and some of these cards that are hard to find and expensive. And Feller, there's cards of his in the 30s that I can't afford. So that's the issue for me, not whether he's not as valuable as, I don't know who what hitter played with Feller that's more expensive than him. I don't know.
Now, Mike, he just mentioned a bunch of kind of, regional releases, food releases, Johnston cookies and bread cards and these types of things. And most of what you collect are a lot of the traditional, recognizable, iconic cards. What is your take on why you go that direction instead of the lake to lake cards like Dan just mentioned?
Well, first of all, Dan started talking, so I started paying attention to the Celtics game. So sorry about that. I love oddball cards, but when I started really thinking about my collection a couple of years ago and looking at the cards that got me excited, it was the more well-known cards. It's not the low pop, it's not the oddball. I love them, but they're not like, I don't see them and go, oh man, I've got to have that. I just think, oh, that's cool. And I think there's a difference there. And so I want if you look at the cards now, modern, ultra modern cards, every player has thousands every year. I want the rookie Topps Chrome refractor. That's the only one I want of a player.
Just the regular refractor.
Yes.
Because that's like the new base is
right.
the refractor. It's rare enough that it's not worthless. I don't want to say worthless. It's rare enough that it's not literally guys on breaking channels drop it in the trash can, but it's also not crazy expensive. All right, Jake, let's take a look at your list. You said Ty Cobb, Ted Williams, Carl Yastrzemski. Now,
I don't know why I said Ty. Why did I say Ty Cobb? I don't know why I said that. It was just on my brain.
Yeah, like two of his
cards. I have one of his cards.
One of his cards.
That's weird. Maybe the other two make total sense, but why I said Ty Cobb?
Aaron couldn't get the lesson right last week, so you didn't get the lesson right.
169 people in the chat is our high water mark so far. Now, okay, so let's just move on from the Cobb for a second. Let's focus on Ted Williams and Carl Yastrzemski, the two best Red Sox ever. Would you agree with that?
No. I would say Ted Williams is the best Red Sox ever. I don't know that I would have Yaz ahead of either Pedro or David Ortiz. But
really?
But well, I mean, David Ortiz won 3 rings and Captain Carl had 0. Not really through any fault of his own necessarily. He was amazing in the 67 series and he's pretty good in the 75 series too, although he made the last out. But
we're talking post-war, right? Modern day.
Sure, right. Yeah, I'm not. Well, yeah, I mean, you could put Babe Ruth on that list. You could put Tris Speaker on that list.
Sure.
You could put Smokey Joe Wood on that list, to be honest with you. But
I think more of when if a guy goes into the Hall of Fame, whose hat does he have on is who I'm identifying them with. But
right.
Yes,
well,
you're right.
Yeah, I just wouldn't. I wouldn't have Yaz second. Is all I'm saying. Like I think he was. So for me, Ted Williams and Yaz are the only 2 players that I PC. Like the only 2 players that I want to try to get as many of their cards as I can. Yaz is like the only player that, like you were just talking about with the kind of oddball issues, that I'm trying to get as many of them as I can. I have a list, trying to work it down. At the Cranston show last weekend, I picked up his 1965 Old London coin. I am, and I can't, and shout out to Mark Hoyle, who I think is in the chat. And you guys obviously had an amazing Yaz show on Dan's channel. I don't think I can hold a candle to the other 3 guys, but I'm working on it.
It was Keating and Mark. Mike was just along for the ride.
Okay. Yeah. There we go. And like, so it's kind of an interesting thing. Like, I don't really collect autographs, but like what happened to everybody? Oh, there we go.
I can't see.
Brian Daubach
signed. There you go. I would say that Yaz, like,
Greg,
I don't really collect autographs, but there was a Yaz autographed Perez Steele postcard in the Collector Connection auction that ended on Sunday that I bid on, but I decided kind of not to really go for it. But that's like, he's like the only guy that I would go out of my way to like buy an autograph of his. As far, I think what I intended to do with this, and again, I don't know why I said Cobb. It was kind of hard for me to come up with a third person who like makes up like the bulk of cards in my collection other than those two guys. Like, who is the third guy that I have the most cards of? Like, it's probably either Cal Ripken Jr. or Ken Griffey Jr. Like I would probably have Cal Ripken Jr. I probably really should have put Cal Ripken Jr. there instead of Ty Cobb. What the hell was I doing? But I do have one. I do have one of his cards, and I have I literally have no intention of getting another one of his cards.
I mean, I'll take the blame. If you look at the value, what's
this box? This box is filled with old Red Sox autographs.
You got one coming in the mail on the way, buddy.
I checked my mailbox today. Look, Kevin Youkilis, rookie auto. Papelbon, rookie auto.
Wow.
Oh, man.
John Lester.
3 people.
Hold on. I think I'm going to barf in a second here.
I love it. Keep them coming. I have a Ryan Taylor.
Like my least favorite.
Jose Offerman.
Jose Offerman.
Jose Offerman, didn't he kick a catcher?
No,
was Izzy
Alcantara was the one that kicked the catcher in Pawtucket. Yeah,
but my dad's sharing his opinion on your Ortiz to Yaz comparison.
The rings.
I agree with Mr. Miller. Sorry.
Look, I didn't see Yaz play, so I will take Coach's word, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of, you want to talk about relevancy, like, to stuff like Ortiz, was like central in 3 World Series victories and was put the team on his back down 3-0 to the Yankees. And again, I don't want to blame Yaz, because like the team, it wasn't his fault necessarily, and maybe things are different if Jim Longborg doesn't give up a home run to Bob Gibson in Game 7 in '67. But
can I guess this?
Yeah, we can both take a turn. Now, Mike has to be quiet for a second. So the last question I asked everyone is, who do they think they collect most? Like, which YouTuber does their collection most resemble? So, Dan, what's your guess on what Mike said on the collection his most resembles?
I think it's obvious. It's got to be Dustin.
All right, Jake, your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Dustin too.
No, come on, somebody give me a real guess.
I'll say Adam.
Adam, which Adam?
Splendid Sports.
Okay, and Dan, what's your real one?
Moynihan.
Yeah, it would be in that order: Moynihan and then Adam.
Oh,
yeah.
I got it. Wow.
This is pre-new logo, pre-new Moynihan logo. Yeah, that's pretty good that you got that. And then the fact that he said his second one was splendid.
Yeah.
Right.
The two guys I watch the most, sorry guys, are Adam and Mike Moynihan. Partially because their videos are short, sorry, but also because I know I'm going to see cards that I want. I like. With Adam, you got a lot of Bird, you got a lot of Pedro Martinez, a lot of Mantle, but that's okay. And with Moynihan, it's a lot of rookie cards, autographs. Those are my jam.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I definitely get it. Makes sense. And I'll be honest, I mean, Adam just made the Hall of Fame for a reason. He's got a great channel. He's a great guy, very likable guy. All right, let's take a look next at Dan. So I'll start with you, Mike. Who do you
I would say Oddball Rick.
Oddball Rick, okay. And Jake, who do you think is the YouTuber?
I'm kind of bad at this. I'm not gonna lie, because I just, I feel like I'm relatively new to this, and so I don't, well, I know, my answer for myself, but like, I think that's a good answer on oddball cards. I don't know. I guess I'll say like Mangini. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, there you go. That wasn't even, I didn't even see that, but that's kind of just like a lot of different things, broad, like, going after a lot of different cards, sets, things like that. Just like kind of, the broad collector.
Now, let me just, before we reveal this, I want to say, I want to make, this is a pretty big deal in my opinion. Just a moment ago, we hit 183 people in the chat. The high water mark in MidLife Live 1 was 181, and we're now at 184. So you guys have officially eclipsed the first one. So that's pretty impressive.
Hey, I was just to say, take that, Petty. Take that, Tony.
What did Dan say?
The nicest guys in the world.
People don't want good-looking panels. They don't want panels with good hair.
Mangini.
Nice job, Jim.
Yeah, that's pretty good. You guys are. You guys. Here we got.
Give me all the Troy O'Leary cards.
Yes, bring them on.
I have chats with Mangini, just the two of us, and it's send me this. He sends me a photo of a card and says stuff about it. I do the same for him. It's really like very rewarding. And it's like, this is the guy whose collection, and some of this is projection, like as if Mike has a Moynihan collection. Come on. Like as if I have a Mangini collection, you know,
right.
I'll take it on the chin for that. But you know, his thing about collecting cards from all these like completely random sets. I bought one. This is the Maple Chris Bet.
Oh, well, I can show you here. Here, you want to show that again? Show that again.
The 1923 Maple Chris Bet, which is produced in Montreal, Canada, has 30 subjects, and I can't afford most of them, but I could afford this one. It's Emil Musel, who's also known as Irish Musel, who's the brother of Bob. This guy's actually fairly relevant historically, but I don't want to bore everybody, so.
See, I look at that and I say, that's really cool, but it's not something that I would collect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's what makes this fun. You know, it's the same thing. I say this all the time. It's the same thing with sports talk radio. If we all like the same team, then it wouldn't be that fun watching football in a stadium, because you're just rooting together. Like you have to have a yin to a yang. And to me, that's a lot of the fun of the whole thing. Now let's take a look at Jake. So Jake, again, let's start with you, Mike. What do you think Jake would say for his?
Wow, that's a good question.
I will say this about Jake while you're thinking. His collection in the last 6 months has like exploded in changes, and it's picked up some absolute monsters. So if we were to ask him this a year ago versus now, it might be different. But what do you think, Mike?
Well, you asked these questions like 6 months ago, Greg.
I asked him like 6 days ago.
No. Got to be somebody bought. Like, is it me? It's not, because his collection's better than mine.
Oh, I don't know about that, but
Boston Adam. No, that's not right either. I don't know. I don't have a good guess for you.
What do you got, Dan?
I think it's either Adam Splendid Sports or you, Greg.
All right, let's take a look.
I picked Dan.
Yeah.
Now there's some differences. Like, I don't PC as many players as Dan does, but I try to have a broad collection, and I build sets, and I build player runs, and I do I definitely try to do the same thing where I like to collect cards from different sets and spread things around. I would say that, like, maybe like you showed that Irish Musel card. I don't know, like, I would love a card from the Maple Chris Bet set, like a big player, a big Hall of Famer or something like that. But I don't know, I would rather probably spend my money on a bigger name than just to kind of have a card from that set. But you hit the nail on the head, Greg, where my collecting a year ago, I was building sets, like, and then I decided to focus on bigger cards over the course of the last 6 months. And I built almost the entirety of the 63 top set. And then I decided, no, I'm not going to finish it. So I sold everything off. I traded all of the big cards for my Clemente rookie to shout out. That was another trade with Matt from Providence. And, sold off the rest of what I had and bought. I actually, the other money that I had from selling that set, I bought my 48 leaf Ted so basically I funneled that set into 2 huge cards, like 2 of the top 10 cards in my PC.
49 leaf.
Sure. Yes. And I should know better. 49.
Now, let me ask you this, though, Jake. I mean, to me, one of the most interesting topics, and I could talk about this ad nauseum, and I do, is how do you decide quantity versus quality? And why did you take that leap? I was watching Card Cutter the other day and Canadian Cards Mike, and they were talking about basically, are we influenced by what we're seeing? Do you think if YouTube wasn't something that you watched, you would have still gone that route of quantity over to quality, or was it just something you think that you were doing anyway? What happened?
I think that I part of it was sort of ease. Something is like, it's easier to collect fewer cards than it is to collect a lot more. And I'm not done set building. I'm gonna continue to do that. I'm probably gonna be more selective. And I am, I think that for me it just came down to like, okay, if I could have a lot of cards, or if I could have one card of somebody that I think it's really relevant to me personally as a collector trying to build a great PC, then I want to go for that one bigger card. And that was the impetus behind, the trade that I just did for the Cobb. It was the impetus towards, pooling money that I had to buy my Walter Johnson recently, my Christy Mathewson recently. And that's kind of going to be my focus going forward, is like, and I assume maybe after we're done with this, we'll talk a little bit about like our specific like collections and the things that we're working on. But like, I think for me, it was just a matter of like ease. Like, but I agree with you that if I wasn't on YouTube, if I wasn't watching other people collecting and getting like cool cards and stuff, like maybe I would have kept going the way that I was going. But I think that like focusing the collection on more bigger cards is I feel like that's going to be the way that I do things going forward. But again, I'm not opposed to continuing to like build sets and collect cards of players that I just think are cool, and collect cards that I think that I just want.
Now, Mike, would you say that you're quality or quantity? Because I would say that you're mostly quality. You're mostly getting bigger cards, but then you have a lot of things like Jackie Joyner Kersey cards, or like John McEnroe cards that are more, not expensive cards. What category would you think you would put yourself in on that?
I want, for the most part, quality cards, but low grade. So I want a 1.5. I want the Mookie special with the pinhole that's barely noticeable. I want authentic, because then I can get more of those quality cards.
Yeah. Now, I think that Dan is along those lines too. And I think all three of you kind of fall in that category. Correct me if I'm wrong. Dan, you would say, Chris from Missouri is kind of that way, is he wants to have a lot of cool, iconic cards. And if he has one in a 5, like at the National, he traded down, I believe it was a 1950 Bowman Jackie Robinson. He traded down and then freed up cash to get a lower grade, lower quality one, not grade, quality, and then some other stuff too. That's kind of how you collect, right, Dan?
Yeah, well, two things. One is, I don't own this card if it's anything more than a creased up 1, because I'm not paying the price of a 1.5. So now I have a 1934 Lou Gehrig card in my collection because of I'm willing to accept a 1. So, I mean, yeah. And then this is the one. This is one more. This is the Mookie special. This is an absolutely gorgeous card. That's a 1.5 that has a little bit of a pinhole there, which saved me. I said about $1,000. I think it saved me about $500. That little pinhole. So I ended up with this beautiful card, which I never would have spent like $800 for this. Instead, I spent like $250. So, to me, it's kind of like, you make decisions. And yeah, I agree with Rick. Rick said quality over quantity, but I think quality isn't necessarily quality like the number at the top of the slab. It's quality of the content of the cards.
Sure, for sure. I think we're all fully in agreement on that.
Same thing with all my T206s. I mean, I have a couple of 3s, but they're not stars. All my Hall of Famers are 1s, 1.5s, or the highest one is a 2. And that's how I have a T206 collection.
This is,
All
I mean,
right.
like I said, I just quickly, Greg, like that's exactly like like it was funny because we showed like the DiMaggio that you have the 49 Leaf one, like, and I was saying like, oh yeah, I want to get a DiMaggio playing days card, and I have the 49 Leaf is the one I want, and you showed it, and then literally either the 33 or 34 Garrick Gowdy is on my list, and it would be the same thing. It would be a one, like so. I feel like my list is either we have the same lists, like just about for the cards, or you already have a lot of the ones that I want. So that's why I said I feel like I collect data.
Well, I'm moved. I'm touched.
I'm gonna show a couple of cards of some non-hobby relevant guys, I guess, long-term relevance.
I'm gonna step away because I have to pee.
Okay, you go pee.
Oh, so when I step away,
hold on.
roast me.
Yeah, go ahead, roast.
When I leave,
go for it, Mike. What do you want to say about Dan, Mike?
To go watch the end of the Celtics game with my wife and 15-year-old. Dan is going to roast me, but he's gone to what? Like go to the bathroom or something here, which
he's an old man. An old
man.
man.
I mean, he doesn't, doesn't have as much control.
Yeah, I think he has to get a pass on this. It's discrimination otherwise. So Dan was talking about T206s, and we're talking about guys that aren't long-term hobby superstars. So let me ask you, I know that, Jake, you're a super great baseball historian. Do you know what's special about Ginger Beaumont? There's a couple things.
Not really. I mean, I see the B. I assume it's Boston. He was a Brave.
He did play for, I think it was the Doves, wasn't it? The Doves.
Okay.
But
yeah.
First player, he was a Pirate. He was a Pirate and did play for Boston.
He's hit or something like that.
First person to ever bat in the World Series.
Yeah.
And he won a batting title, and he led the league in hits 4 times. And so, okay, here's another one for you. I know Dan's going to get this one, I think. What's special about Harry Davis is a PSA 2 T206 card. Do you know what's special about Harry Davis?
Well, I know he was a Philadelphia first baseman. He's won 4 home run titles or something.
4 years in a row, he won the AL home run title. And then, again, these guys aren't Hall of Famers, but they're interesting to me. And then here's another one that I think he holds a record that may never be broken. This is Owen Chief Wilson. Anybody know what that record is?
No.
He had 36 triples in a season.
Triples. Yeah.
36 triples in a season, and I think since 1950, only one person's had more than 15, and it was Curtis Granderson had 20. So that record will never be broken. But I mean, you can collect cool cards from cool sets of guys that aren't, the be all and end all, and there's a little story to go with it, which I think is interesting. All right, so the next
thing, whole couch filled with those over here. If you want.
Oh, yeah, but what?
I have a whole couch filled with those cards that I've set up for this show.
Well, anything that you think slides in, you feel free to grab it and show it. So the last question I have is, do you plan on ever selling your PC? I'd be interested in hearing what the chat has to say. Give me a Y or an N in the chat if you're planning on ever selling your collection. I'll be honest with you, I was surprised by how you guys all answered this.
I don't remember what I said.
Everyone said no. Yeah,
that's what I was feeling right now. I'm just going to jump in and answer here, even though you didn't ask me to.
No, I want you to.
I have instructions. I have sent my wife a Word document online that describes, all of my our family accounts and things like that, and what to do. And here's what to do with my collection. Mail it all to Greg as a gift. No. And what to do with it, how to get the most value from it, where are the most valuable cards, things like that. But I hope I don't need to sell while I'm alive.
Yeah.
If I need to sell, then something has gone wrong.
Right. Jake, why does it matter if your cards have any value if you're never going to sell them?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, again, it's like I said, it's somewhat important, but it's not. But it was somewhat important in the idea that there are players that I like to collect who are valuable and have long-term relevance. But again, same thing for me. I'm not focused on selling my PC. Like I've sold, there's a lot of stuff that I've bought and sold over the course of the last couple of years as I've gotten back into this. But my focus is on building my PC. It's not on selling it. And if you never know what life can throw at you. I've had some interesting things thrown at me in the last few months, but I don't have any plans to sell my PC anytime soon. But I don't have a crystal ball, but do I plan on it? No way.
Yeah. I don't think any of us want to, but I think like Chris from Missouri said, only if I have to. And it is nice. Yeah, he said if I have to. Yeah. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you sell your baseball cards to buy your wife's engagement ring, I think? So, there is stored value in there, which is a good thing. 186 people currently in the chat, which is, again, fantastic. If you haven't been commenting, don't hesitate to comment. We want to hear from everybody.
I'm sure at least 2 of them are here to see Dan.
I would say at least. At least
1.5.
All right.
I up with something to respond to that. Can I respond to that last question?
Yeah. The debate floor is open. You have 30 seconds to respond.
I didn't even get a chance to talk about the square boxes there. I guess the answer to the question is no, because like I said before, I have literally given my wife the name of a dealer who I trust, who I'm friends with, who she should contact to get the valuation of my collection and to sell it to do whatever they want with it. But value, and I think is a good question to Jake, but I think Jake missed the boat here. Value is important now because I'm still collecting. I may want to sell some of these cards to upgrade them, or I may lose interest in them, or I may want to focus as say goodbye to my 1954 set build and get something else. So there's a lot of things that you can do that you need value to move the cards.
Yeah, point taken. Yeah.
Am I ever selling my PC as an entirety? Hopefully not. That's the Chris thing is hopefully I don't have to. But if I don't have to, absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just quickly review. On Friday, I posted a video. I'm pretty sure you 3 guys saw it, as I think you all commented. And a viewer, Adam, lives up in Oregon. He took a bunch of PSA slabs, 25 in all. He cracked the cards out and he sent them into SGC and he got them back. And 19 of the cards went up grade-wise from their PSA slab to their SGC slab. And 1 went down a half a grade, and we showed like about 15 of the ones that he had received. And it's gotten a lot of views. It's got about 11,000 views so far. But I think that we all have opinions, and I know some of us have strong opinions. And I think the strongest opinion is you, Dan. What is your opinion on grading at the moment? Okay, let's go ahead and show the card. Let's see.
This card is the reason that I will never sub to PSA, because I subbed this card to PSA in March of 2021, and I got it into my hands in a graded slab in August of 2022. 17 months they held this card from me.
Is that a long time?
If any other company did that with any other valuable piece of property, they would go out of business. But for some reason, PSA is now the greatest thing in the world because of resale value, which is, of course, complete BS also. But I feel very strongly that right now, and I love that you did that video, Greg, because it proves exactly what I think, which is that PSA, when it comes to grading vintage baseball, doesn't know anything. They really do not know anything. Their numbers are just completely cockamamie. And SGC is not. SGC's numbers are very consistent. I can guess my grades on every submission between 1 to 2 grades, at the most 2. Usually it's 1 or half a grade, or exactly right. So if you go into PSA, you don't know what you're getting. And Chris Sewell did the video similar to that. I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, where he had sent in a submission, and he got back what he called I forget the word he used, questionable or head scratching. He got the head scratchers, so he sent all the head scratchers to SGC, and they all got better grades. And so I thought to myself, of course, it's exactly what is going to happen. It's going to happen. SGC is going to get it right, and they're going to correct PSA's mistakes when it comes to vintage cards.
Do you rest your case?
I have more to say.
All right,
what about malarkey?
Hogwash.
Let me slide over to Jake, because I think, Jake, I don't want to speak for you, but I think that you and Dan see things similarly in this regard. Where are you with grading?
Yeah, so I won't send stuff to PSA anymore. The last time I sent anything to PSA was last spring. So their turnaround times, for cards have gotten better. Like they were obviously, it was terrible in the pandemic, right? And right after it. But I'm experiencing this thing right now, and I posted this as a comment on Greg's video, one of his videos, which is that I sent a ticket stub, and it was that Patriots ticket stub from the game that Tom Brady came in. It was a game that I was at. I sent it to PSA in the beginning of November. It's been in assembly for almost 2 months, and the only thing that I have from them is an estimated arrival of April 14th. That means they would have my ticket stub for like over 5 months. That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. And I know that it's probably part of it is that they maybe don't have as much manpower or, for lack of a better word, behind the ticket grading side of the business, which I don't think is probably as robust as other areas of their business. But PSA has made it very clear that they cater to not just the modern subbers, but the highest echelon of the modern subbers, where they proudly will trumpet that the Skeens debut rookie patch was walked in to their facility in California, and they turned it around the same day and graded it as a 10 on both the auto and the card.
By Mike Mahan, Fanatics Collectibles.
I don't know who that is. Okay, well, there you go. But I'm just saying, like, this is who they're catering to. Like, they're catering to that side of it. They're catering to the modern collector. They're catering to the Pokemon collector too. And again, I'm not trying to knock anybody that collects that stuff, but they don't care about they've made it painfully obvious that they do not care about the vintage collector. Painfully obvious. And the flip side of that is that SGC, under Peter's leadership, they have wonderful customer service. Their turnaround times are always consistent. And if they're not going to be consistent with their turnaround times, Peter will get on social media and say, we're sorry. So like the national happened and we had a huge influx of cards, and our turnaround times are going to be more like 2 weeks to 20 days as opposed to 5 to 10 days. But we're working really hard to get that back online. And boom. And they will always turn it around. When I email them, if I have a question about something, the guy, his name is Brett. He's emailed me multiple times. He gets back to me like that right away. Now, the thing that I mentioned in the comment is the more that SGC is integrated into the collector's cinematic universe, how much is this going to change? Is Peter going to stick around? We don't know. In my business, there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and usually a lot of founder CEOs in the startup world, and they get acquired, they get bought by Microsoft, they get bought by a big tech company. They stick around for 6-8 months, and then they go on and they do the next thing. So I don't know if that, and I don't think Peter's the founder CEO, but I'm just saying he's been there for a while. So I'm just saying, like, to me, it's no contest. And then just from an aesthetic standpoint, as I collect more pre-war stuff, I want the stuff to be in SGC slabs because I just the same. And the thing that Dan didn't mention, the thing I thought you were going to mention, Dan, and actually I thought that the Fox card didn't look that bad, but it does have the Mylar baggie, which I can't stand.
Actually, on the Fox, the grade is correct. That's not
the grade's correct, but I'm talking about the baggie. I'm talking about the Mylar baggie.
Baggie, yeah,
which I can't stand. It looks awful, and I understand why they do it, but like it looks so bad when I can have my Iron Man McGinty in a 2. Look at how beautiful that is. Come on, you can't tell me that you want this card to look like you would rather have this card be in a Mylar baggie in this slab. Give me a break.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Mike, let me just say, what are you? Are you leaving?
Put me on the full screen here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, here we go.
I have nothing of value to add here except for my Boston fans here because I have to leave. I'm going to go watch the end of the Red Sox games, but I'm going to show some cards.
I mean the Celtics.
First. Right, that's what I said. Bob Stanley autograph. Mike Greenwell, huh? Here's a Mo Vaughn rookie autograph. Here's another Mo Vaughn rookie autograph. Where's Adam? Come on, Adam. Here's another Mo Vaughn rookie autograph. Bill Lee TTM'd Earth 2022, he wrote on this one.
That's Bill.
Spaceman. Terry Francona. I have another Terry Francona rookie autograph too. It's not in this box for some reason. Joe Morgan. Morgan Magic. Anybody remember?
Walpole Joe.
Oh, yeah. After the All-Star break.
Marty Barrett. And that's it. I'm out. Awesome. There's Adam. All right, all. Thank you very much. This was a blast. I had a great time, but Celtics game with my family. Got to go. Thanks,
Well,
Greg,
thanks for
having
coming on, buddy. Appreciate it.
See you.
Bye, Mike.
Had a great time.
See you, dude. So now is this where we start talking crap about Mike?
I think we talked enough crap about him to his face. I don't know.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I called him Dustin twice, and that I knew that bothered him.
That's the real reason why you left.
He said that was really bothering him, and I said you shouldn't have told me that because now I'm never going to call you anything else.
I will say, just to recenter the conversation a little bit, I don't, just in terms of the grading, I don't mind buying cards in PSA slabs, especially cards from the post-war era. That doesn't bother me. If the card is in the Mylar baggie, I will almost certainly not buy it. But I will buy. I have IPC all like Hall of Fame rookies from 54 to present. I will buy Hall of Fame rookies post-war in PSA slabs. I don't mind that. What I will not do is I will not have any pre-war cards in PSA slabs. I will crack them out. I will reholder them. I won't do it. But other than that, even if I bought, I would buy a pre-war card in a PSA slab, but I will either crack it out depending on how much I spent on it, or I will go and send it to get reholdered.
Here's a beautiful set.
Crossed over.
This is the entire 1948 Bowman set in all SGC slabs.
Wow.
Which would be great if they had a registry. But
that's a big downside. I don't disagree with that. So if you're a set builder,
maybe make this terrible thing that SGC is doing now. I'm sorry, PSA is doing now, which is just poorly grading vintage,
yeah,
and just buy the threes that look like sixes, crack them out, and make money. I think that's a really good strategy. I mean, that's what was the gentleman's name?
Adam.
Adam. That's what Adam did essentially, right? I mean, he was trying to get his Kurt Flood and Veda Pinson collections, and that's what he did. And that, to me, like, I'd like to meet this guy because he's an SGC guy. He proved the PSA is full of it, and he collects two major historically important guys who are not Hall of Famers and not hobby relevant.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna hold back a little bit. I've been on the verge of blowing up since I heard that PSA discreetly went in and changed their grading standards on their website.
Yeah.
Here's if it goes from 60-40 was forever the standard for a 10, 60-40, and then they don't say anything to anyone, and they go down to 45-55 discreetly without an announcement on their website. As soon as they change the standard, as soon as the standard is different, then everything changes. Everything changes as soon as the standard is different. In my opinion, no longer is a 9 a 9 and a 10 a 10 because it's not the same playing field. It's sort of like the asterisk with Roger Maris. It's a different number of games. And so in baseball, people hold they hold sacred the records. And the reason that so many people got upset, they got upset because it was Babe Ruth, but they also got upset because it was slightly different, and that creates controversy. And when you're a grading company, when your whole job is to evaluate, your job is to evaluate this against this, and it holds the test of time. And they say, we haven't gotten harder at grading. We're the same. We grade the same. An 8 from 20 years ago is the same as an 8 now. But then you change the standard. It's not the same anymore. It's completely different.
The standard hasn't been 60-40 for 10 years.
I know that, but on their site, it was. And if it's a 1-of-1 Wemby that gets walked into the office that's been Kurt's card cared, then that can be 60-40 because that's off center. That's 60-40 off center. And now they've changed the standard. They can't change the standard. They have to stick with the standard, or else everything that was graded to that point is irrelevant. And that is a big time problem that they did that. And the fact that they did it without saying anything is even worse.
Completely agree.
I mean, yes, absolutely. Everything you said is correct, except for the fact that PSA has not used 60-40 in 10 years. PSA does not grade by their own standards and hasn't for years. A PSA 2, a current PSA 2 would be like a PSA 4 15 years ago. And I've seen,
100%.
we've all seen hundreds of examples. I put them side to side of cards that, are in old holders, to me, aren't properly graded at this point. They're just not properly graded. And, SGC to a certain extent has the same thing. Every time I see one of the green labels, I'm thinking this is not what they would give it now, but PSA is way more strict now than they used to be. And it's a sliding scale. It's fiction, essentially.
When do you think it changed, Dan? When do you think it got hard? Do you think it was gradual over 10 years, or do you think it was a rather sudden moment where something happened and it got tougher?
It's both. It was gradual as the years went on through the 2000s, but everything since COVID has changed to be super strict. And that's because, they have millions of cards to grade now that they never had to.
Do you think that's the reason why?
There's a lot of hobby politics involved in it. There's pop counts. I think pop counts are involved in it. But, when it comes to vintage, a lot of it is simply negligence. They don't know what they're doing at this point.
Well, what else happened right around COVID at the backlog? There were a couple of things that happened. There was a backlog. There was a huge influx of cards being submitted. Something else happened.
Huge influx of inexperienced graders, essentially.
Inexperienced graders started showing up because they were backlogged. But something else big happened. That Nat Turner showed up. Oh. And when Nat Turner showed up, one of the first things they did was they bought Genament, which is an evaluation software program, which gives them a cheat sheet on things like centering. And as a result of that, I think that had something to do with it. Now, another person who I think has strong opinions on grading, I'm going to bring on right now.
Oh.
Mr. President, tell us your thoughts on grading.
What's up, guys?
Woo!
Up.
Hey, Dan, I just wanted to say I love you too, Dan.
John, feelings mutual.
Tell me your thoughts on grading, my friend.
I don't know, man.
You're never short on opinions. Tell me about.
I'm not into grading.
Do you think that grading is good or bad for the hobby?
I think by its intention, it would be good for the hobby, but I think what it has caused is bad for the hobby.
Why do you think that suddenly it feels like PSA grading got tougher?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really sad. Like, so many people, and I used to grade a lot, not a lot, but here and there. But we all, people spent tens of thousands of dollars grading all their cards all those years. And now the opinion is anything graded before 2020 is basically a junk slab. People, they won't pay the same price for them. And now with this 10 standard, I was looking through some early 80s cards, and I'm looking at some 10s, and I'm like, these are probably 60-40. Now they're no longer 10s. I bought a 10 that's now no longer a 10. And even if that number stays on the slab, people buying those cards are going to be like, this isn't a 10 anymore, just like they are with the old slabs. And it's crazy. Like, where does it all end?
Hey, Jake, do you think that the AI software and Nat Turner, because here's kind of finishing that thought about the Nat Turner thing, is Nat Turner he's a businessman. He's a venture capitalist. He saw an opportunity. He's a software guy. He's an efficiency guy. So he buys this company that's got this big backlog. He sees an opportunity. He institutes quickly this software that's going to do some of the AI measuring of assisting the grader real quickly. And then all of a sudden, the grades get harder right around the same time. Am I just wearing a tinfoil hat, or is there maybe something to that?
I think there's something to it for sure. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a tinfoil hat. This is what bugs me, is that they have done this stuff. They have definitely, we all have eyes. Like, that's the whole purpose of doing this. We like to look at baseball cards, as somebody on here likes to say. But we all see it. We all have seen that they changed their standards, and they will not, they won't admit it. And I don't know if the lawyer here would say this, I don't know if they would open themselves up to liability if they did say that they changed their grading standards. Maybe probably not. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know why they won't admit it is my point. And it's that we can all see it, that they changed how they grade cards, and they will not be honest about it, and they will not do it.
Because PSA knows that the only thing they have in the hobby is reputation and this concept that their resale value is the reason why everybody should go to them. Their customer service sucks. Their service sucks. Their timing sucks. Their attitude sucks. They are a terrible company that is somehow succeeding because people are stupid enough to say, oh, I'm going to get more money every time I sell a PSA slab versus an SGC slab. And so if they go and they get bad publicity, which is what this 55-45 is going to give them bad publicity. And they're very sensitive to bad publicity.
Absolutely.
I mean, what's his name? Nat Turner constantly interacts with people who have the opportunity to give him bad publicity and tries to cure it and fix it or whatever. So the reality is that's the reason why they didn't publicize it, because it's going to make them look like idiots. And
they look even worse.
Is Joe Grader, Joe Submitter, to think, oh wait, SGC is full of it, and they are full of it. We know they're full of it, but I think
so. Let me ask you. I got to ask you a follow up, Dan. You're getting a lot of preach on in the, you got the choir out there in the chat, and they're loving you. They're chanting your name right now. But my follow-up question is, then why are they getting 10 times as many submissions every month of SGC and Beckett combined?
I'm a baseball guy, and I don't know how many baseball cards. The vintage baseball that they grade is pretty close to the number of vintage baseball that SGC grades. They grade a hell of a lot more modern. SGC just doesn't do modern, and fine. I don't care. I don't collect modern. And all this TCG stuff and the Pokemon and all that stuff, they do all that. And that's where those numbers come from. If you look at actual numbers of vintage baseball graded by SGC versus graded by PSA month to month, the number is not that far apart. It's certainly not 10 times. It's maybe at most 2 times.
Mangini, is it? Let me ask you a question as you respond to that. It's something to consider as well. Is talking about this ad nauseum a good thing or a bad thing? Is it good that we're talking about PSA issues and SGC and comparing them, or are we are we just making noise and preventing us from actually enjoying the hobby? Is this good or bad that we're talking about this stuff?
Well, it's both. I kind of view it as like, you know, I tell my daughter something and it's immediately no, 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 you're stupid. And later on, you know, she comes around to what I'm saying when she realizes I might have been right. So it's kind of both. Like I get sick of hearing it and talking about it, but at the same time, it exists, or we wouldn't all be talking about it. So it's on all of our minds.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say is, I think there's like two hobbies. I think, you know, we are all vintage guys, and SGC has always been more popular for vintage cards. What you're seeing at PSA and the resale value, it's the, you know, the modern collectors and people flipping the cards, and they're trying, you know, cracking, resubmitting, trying to get those tens to sell. The younger generation is just simply brainwashed that, you know, anything in a PSA holder, they're not really brainwashed because it's true. Anything in a PSA holder is worth more. And so that's all they care about. Anything else is junk, because that's where the money is. But the other thing I wanted to bring up, and I think we should talk about, is how many times do you send a PSA and get minimum size now, and then you send to SGC and they grade it, or vice versa? I mean, to me, that's just like, how does that not prove that grading is somewhat of a scam?
Yeah,
Thoughts?
like at PSA, SGC is much more likely. I feel like it's incredibly hard to get a card back from SGC that they don't grade. Like, you know, it's got to be counterfeit, or you send an in-person auto and they don't do that, so they send it. You didn't realize that, so they send it back. That happened to me the first time I sent an SGC order in. But like, I think like, yeah,
I have seen it though.
Yeah, I have seen it
PSA,
too.
there was that DiMaggio I shared.
Yeah,
it was graded an authentic by SGC, sold for $22,000.
Yeah,
whoever bought it, cracked it, sent it to PSA. Maybe they know somebody at PSA. You know, with the amount of money that some of these cards are fetching, it just opens the door to fraud. And I'm not saying that's what happened here, but sends it to PSA, an authentic. It gets a 6.5 and now was over $120,000.
Yeah. I mean, I ran into this on a smaller scale with like at Shriners in November, I bought a 34 Diamond Stars Pie Trainer that was marked by the seller as being trimmed. And so I got it for like $40. And I matched it up. I didn't measure it, but I did match it up with other Diamond Stars cards I have. And I was like, it's really close. Like, it's really close. So I'm going to send it to SGC and see what they say. And whoever was the grader was on my side, or you know, was feeling generous that day, and he gave the card a 4, or they gave the card a 4, and that, like, you know, it all of a sudden became like a $300 card.
Let me throw something out, and I'm going to share this comment, which kind of reiterates part of what I was going to say. Is number one, PSA guarantees that the card is what they say it is, and SGC doesn't have that. So it seems like it's possible that if it's close, PSA might go minimum size because they don't want to guarantee it if somehow it comes out later that it was trimmed. And SGC doesn't guarantee it, so they don't have that insurance policy they have to worry about. So they might have a little bit more slack. The other thing I think is possible is if PSA is using some AI for measuring and for centering, if they're using that Genament software, that might be more precise than whatever system SGC is using, and it might give a little bit more margin to SGC. That's possible. I don't know. For the record, we hit a high water mark a minute ago of 218 viewers.
Wow!
So fantastic. I appreciate
we
everybody.
We got the Mangini bump.
I think it was the president, and that's it.
Of course, Grading and Mangini, those are the two draws.
You know. Go ahead.
Can I just say one thing? I submitted to SGC. My last submission was 20-something cards. 3 of them were 1947 Bond Bread cards, and all 3 of them were authentic, but min size not met. And then I went back and I looked at the pop counts. And on all 3 of those cards, nearly 50% of the cards submitted to SGC came back min size not met. And I'm thinking, SGC, you're messing this up. This particular card has probably a much more of a variance in terms of the cut, so that this card is not a factory default. It's actually what came out. So what you're talking about here is that they're messing it up. And so that's not, I don't think, a systematic thing. I think it's just a thing where they didn't know that particular card. And I'm going to actually send an email to them and say, look, 50% of the cards can't be min size not met. That's just where do you draw the line? At what point? Right. If all 100% are min size not met, then your sizing is wrong. And where does the number go down? Min size should be probably 10% at the most, not 50%. Sorry, another rant.
No, you're hitting on what I was going to say, is that vintage cards, many of these sets, they're just not all exactly the same. And if you're using some measurement you come up with that you say it should be, and you're using AI to the tiniest millimeter or whatever, this is what I suspect is why these are all coming back minimum size. I watched a video the other day. The guy had 5 or 6 minimum size in a 20 card order, something like that. And I see them every day. So why are all these cards coming back minimum size? Are they just paranoid with the trimming and cleaning that's been going on, or what? Just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the inexact printing methods of the first half of the 20th century. I mean, like T206 cards, like I guess there's an accepted size of the cards, but they really vary, even if they come out of the come out of the
look at the 33 Sport Kings. If you look at a bunch of those cards, you will see the borders are not the same on all of them.
Yeah,
some of them look trimmed at first glance because they just weren't cut that way. They weren't that precise.
I think somebody thinks your name is Jim, Jake.
That's my dad's name, who got me into collecting. So there you go.
Okay.
I will also mention.
No. Jim was a comment. That was they were talking about this.
Okay. Well, either way.
Let me ask you guys. I want to go around the horn and ask you all a very simple question. Under any circumstances, I'm going to ask it differently to Mangini than the other two.
Oh boy,
Mangini, is there under any circumstance would you send a card in to get graded?
Yeah.
What would that circumstance be?
I don't know yet. I guess if I was going to sell one.
Okay, but you don't sell stuff.
I for me personally, grading is just to sell. For me personally,
yeah.
And I would grade it right before I'm about to sell it, because these standards change. You got old slabs that don't demand as much, because we buy slabs now, not cards. And I would do it right before I'm ready to sell. I would not do it 10 years ahead of time, because I think a lot of people are getting screwed over with this stuff. This new 10 thing is going to be the next thing, where I guarantee you anybody that sells cards, if you have PSA 10s, and they're going to be scrutinizing the centering, and they're going to say, well, that's no longer a 10. That'll be a 9 now.
Dan, if you've got a card that you're never planning on selling, why send it into SGC for grading?
Because I want to display it. I want it to look nice. I want to preserve it, and I want it to have essentially preserve its value for whoever ends up getting the value out of that. And a lot of times, I can't say that there's any card in my collection. Well, that's not true. 95% of the cards in my collection are possible that I could upgrade them, or I could move them, or they could stop speaking to me, and then ultimately I'm not interested in them anymore. But ultimately, I think it's a value thing to a certain extent. But I will not send another card to PSA. However, and you know this because we were talking about it, I won a 1934 World Series ticket in the Brockleman auction this week, and I have to send it out, and I'm going to have to send it out to PSA because SGC doesn't grade tickets.
So you'll get it back in 5 months, apparently, right, Jake?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So kiss that goodbye.
Here's a funny one. So I didn't know if CSG graded tickets. So I did a lot of Googling, and ultimately I went to their website, and it said, chat, help chat. So of course I know it's an AI thing. So I'm dealing with it. And ultimately, in order to get that question answered, I had to put my credit card in to pay like $5 to the AI.
Oh my!
I'm like, I was going to give the finger in your live stream, but I know we're a family audience. But I'm not sorry. I'm now going to go to PSA. If you want to charge me for AI conversations, you're not my company.
Dan just answered the question I was going to ask you to. My question to you, Jake, is there any situation in which you would send a card to PSA to be graded?
If I somehow, yeah, like right now, it would be a very narrow circumstance for a card. Because like I said, I was a member of their collectors club up until they jacked up the price last year. And then I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to pay because and I know that they like kind of went back and like you could sign up, like they did a Black Friday thing where you could sign up and it was cheaper again. Like I just gave up on, excuse me, on them. The only way that I would send a card into PSA is if I somehow came into a really rare modern card, like a bit like, because I opened packs of 2024 Topps Chrome Update on my channel and in shorts on my channel. And again, I rip wax, I rip current wax too, just for fun. It has nothing to do with like it usually doesn't really have anything to do with the value of the cards. But if I pulled the redemption for the Skeens rookie patch auto, that's not going to SGC. Sorry, that's going to PSA. Yeah. But that's the very narrow. If I somehow stumble in to an incredibly rare and valuable modern card, I would send it to PSA. Otherwise, I'm done with them.
Can I just go back? There are plenty of cards in my collection that I do not grade. Like I'm not grading this 1986 Tom Seaver, even though it's in my Seaver collection. Same thing with this 1984 Drakes. They're just grading doesn't make any sense because the card even if it gets a 9, which probably would be a stretch, isn't worth it. So. But
yeah, I have four graded. I was just quickly, Dan. I have a Yaz PC where I have hundreds of his cards. I only have 4 graded Yaz cards. It's the rookie, 61, 62, and the stand-up. That's it.
But I am sending these 2 in. I'm going to break John's heart here. I just got these 2 29 cash-ins in, Rabbit Moranville and Walter Koenig, and I'm sending them in. In fact, I'm probably going to send them in this week.
I think it's important to note that the 2 highest selling cards ever were in SGC slabs.
Great point.
Yeah.
And I think when PSA graded that Wemby that nobody thought was a 10, I think that they were making a push. They started to change the way they were hyping things up, and they gave that thing a 10 because all the big cards the expensive cards were being sold in SGC holders. I think they were trying to change that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have one question though for everybody. When Jake and I broke the 1979 packs, and it was a fun show, and I would hope that everybody would go watch it. I did get the gum and I put it in a top loader because I'm wondering, is anybody grade gum? Is there any grading company that grades?
I think PSA would grade anything if you pay.
Yeah, they'll take your money.
Yeah.
All right.
This is why Dan and I are like alike. I keep mine in
this is
semi-rigids too.
I wanted to also show something that I very heavy. This I hold in my hands right here. This is the entirety of the 68 top set right here. And I made a conscious decision when I built this set that I wanted to have every card in the binder. I bought the Ryan rookie raw on eBay from Greg Morris, and it went through authentication and it passed. That to me is good as gold. And I made a conscious decision that I wanted to have everything. I wanted to have all the cards in here. And that I didn't really care about. I didn't want to, because my 59 set, I have a couple of the cards graded. But to me, it's like, there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to me with the whether or not I grade something. $10. Oh, the gum. But I just think, it depends on, it just depends. Like for me, it's the same thing as I'm answering kind of the question that you asked Dan, Greg, which is like, why do I send stuff to grade? And it is like the same reasons I would say that Dan said. It's kind of, again, I picked him as who I was most similar to collecting to. It's like uniformity in my PC, presentation, the way that I show them off. I want all of my pre-war stuff in SGC slabs. I want the stuff to have to retain. And again, the question about value, I do like the idea of retaining the value of the card or protecting the card in the state that it's in. And that's kind of why I send stuff into grade. And very rarely do I send stuff into grade with the intention that I'm going to sell it, because I think that's a losing proposition most of the time.
You know, these protect them just as well.
I don't know. I think they bounce around a little in there. I have a couple of those.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah, they don't bounce around in your baggies. You know how many cards I have in PSA slabs that literally bounce around?
Oh yeah,
like
it's terrible.
I want to crack them out.
Don't talk about bouncing around in a baggie. This is a
no, not even the baggie. They're new holders. Because they have that thick insert now.
Yeah.
And when I get cards in those new holders, they all move around. And I don't know. I suspect that could damage the edges over time. I don't know. If you're moving your cards and you're driving down the highway for 12 hours and that thing's bouncing like this the whole way, I don't know. But I don't like that it moves around. So
yeah. And
I would argue that that's not as protected as it could be. I would definitely argue that.
I don't disagree with you. And PSA, I have stuff that bounces around.
I've had holders come apart. I've had SGC holders where the card slips on the front of the black insert. All kind of stuff.
Yeah, it happens.
And then what do you have to do?
Yeah.
You have to pay to resubmit. Right. Get a new holder. It's just pay.
SGC slabs are notoriously easy to crack open and yeah, they're not as.
I have one sitting here now. It's a uncut bazooka panel and a 7.5, and I got it, and it was a little loose, and I've messed with it a little bit, and I could pull it right up, and I'm teetering back and forth if I should just do that or if I should send it in and pay more money to have a new slab.
All right. Well, we are an hour and 36 minutes in. We're still right at 200 people. I do want to at least give a quick opportunity. I've been trying to use some of the questions happening in the chat. But if you do have a last, I don't know. Do you think, Dan, does Mangini look anything like Mike there on the screen? They have a couple of similarities.
Well, Mangini is very clearly a significantly better looking man.
Wow.
He's only saying that because I'm on here and Mike's not.
No, I'm hoping that Mike watches this later on. And
I wanted to, Greg, I know that you kind of mentioned this. Like, I wanted to show off some stuff, and I know that Dan had some stuff too. So.
I know Dan had something he wanted to talk about, I believe, as well too, about a project or something. So maybe we wrap it up with that. So yeah, go ahead.
I told Mookie my secret, and so I'm gonna tell everybody because I've told other people. So go ahead, Jake.
Oh yeah, I just want to show a few things. Like, we're talking about like hobby relevance. Like, a few things that I collect or that I care about is, like, I try to collect as many sort of Hall of Famers, like, from their playing days cards as I can. I'm not, at one point I was trying to get a playing days card of every Hall of Famer, and I've kind of given that up. But like, we're talking about hobby relevance. Like, here's a Mecca double folder of Ed Walsh, and he's a Hall of Famer. He's the all-time ERA leader. Nobody in the history of baseball who qualifies for the Hall of Fame has a lower ERA than Ed Walsh.
And he's the last 40-game winner.
Yeah, and these cards, I bought this, Dan, from our mutual friend Paul Borges.
Oh,
he had a huge lot of these at a show once. He had a ton of them, and he had the Cobb one and a bunch of others. And I ended up this was these are undervalued cards. I mean, obviously they're in the bigger slabs and that kind of thing. But again, that's the kind of stuff that I like and that I'll collect no matter what. I'm currently working on like 4 or 5 different things, and it's, like I said, I've tried to focus things down. I have like a big list of cards that are players from different eras that I just want their cards. Also, the Hall of Fame rookie PC that I said, Ted Williams, Carl Yastrzemski. One thing I was working on was the Celtics 61 Fleer run. I showed the koozie before. These are the 2 cards I bought from Sammy Thunder at the White Plains show, and I just finished the run. I teased this earlier in our text group. I finished the run because in the Collector Connection auction, I got the Russell in action in a PSA 3. So so again, I have the dilemma. All of the cards are in SGC slabs, so I'm probably gonna ask them to cross it over because there's a certain threshold of what I spend on a card that I am afraid to try to crack it out. The last thing I just wanted to show is we're talking about like players that you like to collect that are just random for whatever reasons. Here's a card that you're not going to see every day. This is a 1934 Exhibits 4-on-1.
4-on-1. Yeah.
Now, this is it just has some writing on the back, but it's still got a 2 from SGC. And this has St. Louis Browns players on it. So nobody who's really well known, but there's this guy right here. He's listed on the card as Irving Burns. And I also have his 33 Gaudy card. So, and it's Irving was his middle name. His name was Jack. His name was Jack Burns. He was from Cambridge, Massachusetts. He played 6 years in the big leagues or 7 years. He played mostly for the Browns, 1 year with the Tigers, and then he went on to coach for a long time. He was a scout for many years. He was the third base coach for the Red Sox in the early 60s. And then he was a scout for them. He scouted Carlton Fisk. He recommended that the Red Sox draft Carlton Fisk. And his son was a pretty good baseball player too. His son's name was Bob. And but he ended up moving from the Boston area to northern New Hampshire. And he became the high school. This is Irving Burns' Jack Burns' son, Bob, who became the head baseball coach at Kennett High School in Conway, New Hampshire. And he was the head coach there for over 40 years. When he retired, he was the winningest high school baseball coach in the history of the state of New Hampshire. And I played for 4 years on varsity baseball for this man's grandson. And he was one of the most important people in my life. And I get choked up when I talked about him because he passed away in 2015. So he doesn't have a lot of cards, and this is very special for me to own these cards of his. And every year at my old high school, at the end of the baseball season, at the awards banquet, they give out the Jack Burns Award, which they named after him, and I won it my senior year when I was the captain of my team. So
nice. Can I
there's
tell
a lot of
story?
Yeah, there's a lot of hobby relevance from me with Jack Burns. But anyway, go ahead, Dan.
Well, when I pitched in college, we changed coaches in my junior year, and the coach that came in was named Bill Howard, and Bill Howard's father played in the National League. There's Bill Howard in cards in like the 50 Bowman, 51 Bowman, etc. And Bill Howard didn't pitch me at all, so I lost my job because of Bill Howard, so I can't collect any of his cards. His father's cards. I don't even want to see him. I get rid of them. Anyway, I have a guy who might not be hobby relevant, but he is extraordinarily historically important. Al Rosen in 1953, and this is his 53 tops. Look at that badass.
I love that card.
1953 American League Most Valuable Player. He finished one hit short of winning the Triple Crown. And so Al Rosen was a star in the 1950s. He's like Don Mattingly, had a back problem that caused him to cut his career short. But Al Rosen was also a World War II hero. He piloted the gunboat at Okinawa and got a medal for that.
Amazing.
And then came back and played for the Indians from 48 to 56, I believe. Hurt his back, couldn't play anymore. He is a Jewish American, and he is probably, after Hank Greenberg, the first, one of the earliest Jewish American players to deal with prejudice. And instead of what Jackie Robinson did with prejudice, which was to, just not confront it.
Turn the
what
other
Al
cheek.
Rosen did was Al Rosen beat the living crap out of anybody who was anti-Semitic to him, and that worked for him. So I collect all of Al Rosen's cards. I have a massive collection, and this is the 1953 or 54? 52. Num Num, a local potato chip company, put out these wonderful cards, and I have Al Rosen in a 7.
Nice.
But also, I should say, early on in my my channel's history, when I had about 100 subscribers, I did my Al Rosen show, and Scott from Reindeer Studios agreed to come on, even though he was at that time YouTube Sports Card Hall of Famer, and did the show with me. And I will forever thank Scott for taking a chance on a nobody and going on my channel and helping me grow and helping me tell people about a great player like Al Rosen. And to me, hobby relevance if this person is not hobby relevant, then hobby relevance means nothing to me, because this is extraordinarily important player and person in American history. And I can rant about some other people if you want, but let's let John talk.
He has some great looking cards too, and if he beat everybody, then Mo Berg probably had the CIA go after them.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Hey, can I show two things?
Of course.
Okay, so I got something cool here. This is Red Grange's last college ticket.
Oh,
Last
wow.
college
That
game
is
ticket.
awesome. Oh,
And
that's so
somebody
cool.
wrote on the back that they were there to see it, and they put their name, and they said there were 80,000 people in attendance.
Wow.
So very cool, and I have no intentions of sending this for grading. But I got this beauty. Just thought I'd show it. I haven't shown this yet on my channel.
That's beautiful.
Oh, I want that's on my list.
It's so nice.
It's on my list. That's one of the ones I need.
Yeah, you sent a picture of that in one of the groups we're in the other day. It's a gorgeous card.
Yeah, it's a real nice copy. So the story with this is, years ago, back in the early 2000s, I had sold off some of my cards that were really beaten up, right? And I'm like, I'll sell these off and I'll get money, and then I'll buy them again. So I got all my cards again except for this one. It took me over 20 years to get another one of these. So I'm very happy to get it.
Beautiful. Where'd you get it, John? Was that like an eBay?
Yeah, I got it on eBay.
Nice.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, it's like, for me, it's like Ted, Yaz, my sort of big list, and then the other thing is the T206 action poses. So
is he hobby relevant?
I don't know. That panel's not here tonight.
Of the two,
when you talk about relevance, like anybody that had a trophy named after them, they're always remembered. And guys that were announcers, you know, if there's a guy announcing now and younger people didn't see him play, you know, like when I was growing up, Tim McCarver was announcing and Joe Garagiola.
Yeah,
I never saw Garagiola play, but I always wanted his cards because I got to like him as an announcer. It's all that name recognition, really. But then you have people like us who are diehard baseball fans, and we know all these old players. I certainly know who Al Rosen is. I had somebody comment and telling me that Yogi Berra wasn't a household name. And he may be right. I mean, after all these years, he certainly used to be a household name. I mean, my mom knows him. She doesn't watch
every
baseball.
Commercial.
Yeah. But, you know, as time goes on, maybe not. You know? Gale Sayers used to be on TV commercials. That was a long time ago. Young people might not know who Gale Sayers is now. Things change.
Well, his rookie card is very valuable, Gale Sayers, so he does have hobby relevance in that respect.
To me, he's my favorite all-time running back. I think he's the greatest.
Wow.
I love Gale Sayers too.
And the one thing that separates him from everybody else is he caught passes, he returned kicks, and he returned punts.
Wait, Yogi Berra returned punts?
I think we switched to Sayers.
There's my Gale Sayers rookie.
Awesome.
That's a nice one. Yeah, my next frontier is like, and this is going to take a little time. Like I've sort of hinted at this, that I've had some monetary challenges pop up in my life in the last month or so. I want to build a vintage football set next. That's kind of the thing. Hopefully by the end of the year I do that. And I was originally thinking I would do a 60 set, but now I'm thinking I might go a little bit bigger. I might do like 50 Bowman or something.
This says baseball, but you know what this is? This is a complete 1971 Topps basketball set in a binder.
Such a great set.
Yes.
I have never shown on my channel, and very few people know that I own this set.
Well, now 200 plus people know.
Why haven't you sent those in for grading? They're all fake and altered.
I did want to say one thing. I collect Tommy Holmes, and I have a lot of Tommy Holmes cards, and this is one of his most beautiful cards, because Tommy Holmes was my father's favorite baseball player. And is he hobby relevant? No. Is he historically relevant? Absolutely. A star for the Boston Braves. He finished second in the MVP voting, won the batting title in 1945, and was a star in the 1948 World Series. And I think he's relevant. And he's certainly relevant to me because he was my father's favorite player. So
wasn't he the youngest player to ever hit a home run in Major League Baseball?
Tommy Holmes? I don't think so.
Who am I thinking of?
I thought that was wasn't that what's his name?
Like
Andrew Jones.
I
Wasn't
definitely
Andrew Jones break that record?
Well, maybe in the World Series.
Maybe.
But I'm the same way. Like there are definitely players that I know my dad was a big fan of. That when he was a kid, that I like to catch there. I like to grab like cards of theirs. Like Rocky Colavito was one of my dad's favorites. Rusty Staub was one of my dad's favorites. Nellie Fox obviously became a Hall of Famer, but my dad adored Nellie Fox. So I like to collect card. I like to if I come across cool cards, like my one Wilson Franks card is
Tommy Brown.
is Nellie Fox. Oh, there we go. Well, if you believe Chat GPT, we're anti. This is an anti-AI show, so
that's him, Dan. Look him up.
Tommy Brown, not Tommy Holmes.
Oh, you were talking about Tommy Holmes. Okay, all right.
One more card I want to show.
You got it.
Is the Cracker Jack of Dick Rudolph. So is Dick Rudolph hobby relevant? I don't know. Nobody's heard of him. What he did was win 26 games and was the ace of the staff for the 1914 Braves, who won the World Series. They're forever known as the Miracle Braves. Dick Rudolph went to Fordham University, which is where my son just graduated from. And he's buried in the Bronx. And I do intend to go up and see his headstone one of these days. New Yorker, Boston hero. And look at this beautiful Cracker Jack card. I got this from Stan Locke.
Yeah, the Cracker Jack cards, like I mentioned before that the Joe Wood is like the number one on my want list right now. But like I when I first really got back into the vintage hobby a couple of years ago, one of the first graded cards that I bought was I wanted to get a Cracker Jack card because I did a video about this where I went back to the site of my childhood LCS, which was called the Cracker Jack Baseball Card Shop in North Conway, New Hampshire. And there was the picture of Ty Cobb on the sign that was red, like the card, and it said Cracker Jack Baseball Shop, and then the image of Ty Cobb. So I bought an Eros Barger 1915. He was in the Federal League at that point. He had played, I think, for the Pirates, and then he was So I bought that card on eBay in the summer of 2023 for like $75, and it's a 1, and it's messed up. It's got pencil marks and that kind of thing. But that's what I was going to say is I think that I could probably sell that card right now for like $300 because I don't know what, like the Cracker Jacks have just exploded in value.
Question.
Yeah. But I'm very lucky that it's in the case right now, so I can't grab it. But I have a 1914 Hugh Jennings Cracker Jack that I bought from Ash raw for $300. That's missing all the corners. So snip, snap, like the top two, all 4 corners are gone, but it's a beautiful card, and I got it graded, and it came back authentic.
A Butch Schmidt is missing his corner right here.
They're paper thin. That's the thing. They're literally as thin as a sheet of paper.
Mangini, you just bought a pretty big Cracker Jack card in the last month or so, didn't you?
Yeah.
Show us that one. It's a big one. I've got 3 Cracker Jacks. They're all 1915. I showed one a second ago.
The Evers.
So this is a 1914. So 1914 of Evers, Johnny Evers. It's the only 14 I own, and it's missing the 2 top corners.
Yeah, mine is like that, but like worse. They go further down.
I think I got this for $700, which is an amazing amount of money to spend for a card missing 2 corners. But it is Johnny Evers. It is the Braves, and it is 1914. You can see right side up.
The right side up. Yeah.
Yeah. I
think I paid Ash $300 for mine.
So if you want to put me on, if anybody wants to see what the 1914 Evers looks like with the corners, there it is.
We just one upped you.
Here is man, this is one of my favorite all-time cards. This is a 1914 Trish Speaker.
Oh, it's so good.
Nice.
It's a beauty.
On Boston.
You wanted that card for a long time, didn't you?
Well, the one I just got.
No,
this is the one I just got.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a bunch of the Cracker Jacks, and I was fortunate. I was buying them up before they took off.
Yeah.
This is my only recent Cracker Jack purchase. All these other ones I got several years ago, and some of them back in the early 2000s.
All right, I'll show mine. I got Raleigh Zider. I bought this from Chris from Missouri's pal. What's his name? Drop dealer. Can't think of his name. And I bought this one because he is Yankee captain. That's in a 3. And then I've got Cuban born for Orlando.
Nice.
Yeah, Armando Marsans.
Marsans.
And then the Ed Walsh, the one I showed a minute ago.
Oh, that's great.
Gorgeous.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, we've gone for an hour and 55 minutes. I think a 2-hour show would probably be good. We do still have 170 people in here, but at the same time, at some point, it's got to end. So let me go around one last time. Give me any last comments, any last thoughts. Let me just say, Mangini, thanks for jumping on. When Mike bounced,
Thanks for letting me.
Yeah, fired off a text, and here we go. And I appreciate you jumping on. Dan, let's start with you. Any last thoughts?
Well, I have 2 things I want to talk about. One is I am officially a member of the 4 collectors, and that happened last night. And I just wanted to say thank you to my partners in that project. And I am proud and incredibly happy to be involved. And there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and you guys have no idea. 4 collectors is going to dominate to 2025.
Can I ask you, are they changing their name to 5 collectors now, or did they fire somebody?
Nope. Nobody got fired. Everybody is totally into it and having a great time. And everybody is a little different, and they offer different things. And it's just such a great project, and I'm so happy to be involved in it.
Congrats.
Okay. I was going to tell you my new project that I squealed to Mookie several months ago, and then I've told some other people here and there that I am collecting money out of my loose change, I call it. And so I'll get a $20 here, and I'll get this money from this and this money from that. And I got $250 from my father's estate the other day. And so I put it all into an envelope, which is in a safe in my office, and is my Babe Ruth fund. I want to raise $6,000 by next national to buy a 1933 Gaudi Babe Ruth, either the red or the yellow. And I worked a card show and made a pretty good amount of money and put $500 in. And so I'm up to about $2,800. I'm pretty much on track. And so when I go to the national, I'm going to buy a Babe Ruth card, and I will have bought it with non-hobby funds, money that I'm just putting in there, just saving bit by bit by bit. So that's my project.
Good luck.
That's awesome. I
Greg,
like it.
Thank you for inviting me to be on this. It's very special.
Of course. I had a blast.
Came strong again, so happy to talk about baseball cards with you guys forever.
Oh yeah, it was a blast. I appreciate you coming on, Mangini. Thanks for hopping on. You got anything you want to say to?
I just want to do a little plug. I started a playlist on my channel called the Presidential Educational Series. Dan has a video on there talking about Venezuelans. My man Stukes put 3 or 4 videos on there for exhibit cards, and it's just educational stuff. If you want to delve in and find more out about certain vintage card sets, that's a place that, a centralized place that I'm putting sharing a lot of videos. And if anybody wants to participate in doing one, if you have a specific expertise, just let me know, and I'll add it to the playlist.
Awesome.
Oh, to mention one more thing, I'm sorry. John and I are going to be co-hosting with Drew. What's Drew's channel name again?
Clean Cheap Shots.
Clean Cheap Shots. Drew, John, and I are going to be on John's channel a week from tonight. We're going to be interviewing Eddie Watt, who was the main relief pitcher for the Orioles in the late 60s, early 70s. And he's agreed to go 90 minutes. and the chat is going to ask questions, and John and I and Drew are going to ask questions. But it's going to be awesome. A week from tonight, live on John's channel.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Awesome.
We started the Eddie Watt project a while back because he had I think it was a fire.
Flood.
I think it was a fire. Was it a
Flood.
flood?
Yep.
Okay, and he lost all his old cards.
Oh.
And so I said, "Hey, why don't we have all these people in our community who TTM?" And I'm like, "Why don't you send them two? When you send a card in for a TTM, send them a double you have, and tell them to keep it." And he was able to rebuild his whole collection that way.
That's very cool. All right, y'all. I honestly I can't thank the panel.
Wait, hold on,
enough.
Greg. I didn't say anything.
Sorry, Jake.
I just want to say, Greg, thanks for inviting me. I think that there was maybe I was able to kind of jump in somewhat last minute because I'm not really sure. But there was but I'm really glad you asked me to. Well, Mike made it sound like you asked him like 6 months ago to come on this week.
Yeah.
So I think you asked me like
I'm in
ago.
a group chat that has Dan and Mike, and a while back I said, hey, on one of my upcoming months, I'll have you guys on. And then there was some talk about who we'd have on with us, but
okay,
it worked out great.
I really appreciate it. I know like sometimes we get worked up in talking about like kind of the not so fun things about the hobby and the people that are really kind of just in it to make money, like whether it's, you know, the grading companies or certain, you know, hobbyists, quote unquote. You know, it's not as fun to talk. It's fun we're all passionate about it. It's fun to talk about it. But the most fun thing is just talking about what we love to collect and finding sort of kinship and brotherhood in this hobby. And it's really special. It's been great. You know, it's you know, Dan, obviously I've met you in person a couple of times. Hope to meet you, Greg, you and John probably at the National. I won't be at Strongsville, but it's been wonderful to be part of this, to you know, share my collection as I've grown it. And also just for me, it's just about the joy of cards. And it, you know, it goes all the way down from me on a short opening a junk wax pack of 1990 Leaf, in which I got completely skunked and didn't get any good cards, all the way up to, you know, trading for a Ty Cobb. So it's all fun, and I love I love these discussions. It's really is such a joy. So thank you, Greg.
Of course, and again, you were an awesome addition to this. All of you were, and it only works when the chat is doing what the chat does. It's an awesome thing when they're going and they're in participating. And so to everybody who showed up, I believe our high water mark was 218 people tonight, which is almost 40 more than the first live. So thank you to everybody for your participation, for coming and spending the night with us. And I look forward to the next one. March. I've already got some feelers on I know who's going to be on the panel, so it's going to be fun. You guys will like that one too. That said, thanks again, everybody. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.
See you guys.